Good afternoon, everybody. We're back for another Freelance Teacher video cast GED report. Please check out the previous cast of the interview with Quincy Johnson, a real person, an actual truck driver, somebody who can dispense advice from an angle that you probably aren't going to get in school, and the majority of us aren't going to get in our regular daily lives. So that interview is worth it. It is the beginning of an online career day where you can hear from these people in the workforce. You can hear from them in their careers as they go about their business. And how did they get there? What is it like? How much do they make? What are the good things? What do you do, or how does it feel on the days when things are going poorly? Worth it. An hour of real talk. And we'll be talking to Quincy again very soon. We have an interview lined up for later this week or early next week. I'm finishing up the Cameron Todd Willingham case with my ninth graders. It is a disturbing story, but it is a learning it is a teachable moment, as we used to say in education school and in the teacher world. The Cameron Todd Willingham case is worth your time to look up. My sources are the preview for the movie. I believe the movie is called Incendiary. There's a Frontline documentary called Death by Fire. There's a fantastic article in the New Yorker called Trial by Fire. And there's also a video of the Lime Street fire experiment. We have looked at these bits of evidence, these pieces of evidence in class, and as an English teacher, I'm using them for the natural literacy it takes to carry yourself through an article, 26-page article, 12-point font in Word, the New Yorker article, which is very, very good. And then the Incendiary documentary, right? There's a documentary called Incendiary that I paid for. I bought the DVD because it is so good at looking at what went wrong with the government executing a man for a crime he did not do. So it's a lens into our world today. Remember, I'm trying to get it so that young people, my ninth graders, and to some degree the older students as well, can see what is actually going on in our world today. Because there is so much foolishness out there. There is so much nonsense and lying and rhetoric and chaos that it's difficult. Imagine being 14 or 15 in today's society and having to deal with the lack of logos, the lack of reason, the lack of scientific method that's present in today's world. Now, I'm 47, so I've seen some stuff. I've been around the block a few thousand times. I get it. I know how people are going to react. But younger people don't. To some degree, it's a mixed bag. Younger people's BS-ometers are not broken. And they're like, that's crazy. That's nonsense. Right? That's just stupid. But in a lot of ways, because our society, particularly our public school system, teaches young people to worship at the feet of authority, those natural instincts that young people have of being dubious, of being incredulous at the dumbness they hear, it gets corrupted by the adherence and lessons that they get, that authority is the thing that one should respect. And the Willingham case shows Cameron Todd Willingham was put to death after 12 years on death row. A December 1991 fire in his house burned the house down, killed a 1-year-old pair of twins and a 2-year-old daughter. His 3 girls gone, and he went to his grave saying that he didn't do it. He was not a nice person for a long time. He had the image of a thuggish, rough, violent, unthinking man. He didn't display the kind of behavior that people thought he should have displayed after and before the fire. He would be violent with his wife. And when this, what looks like an accident happened, the limits and flaws in human nature came to the surface. The people around him, including his court-appointed attorney, assumed by the way he behaved and the way he was that he was guilty. The arson detectives, particularly the head detective of the case, didn't use the scientific method and used older, discredited techniques to determine that he was a guilty man and had lit the fire, even then, with the comparatively primitive arson sleuthing techniques, didn't show what they said had happened. There was a jailhouse snitch, a jailhouse informant, who said that Todd Willingham had confessed in the presence of guards in a place that could have been recorded that he did it. And not only did he do it, he poured lighter fluid, of which there was no evidence, in the children's room in the shape of a pentagram and lit it. He then recanted this testimony. That testimony never got to Willingham's lawyer. And then he unrecanted his recantation. This is the jailhouse informant. Throughout all of this, you have a guy on death row. Trial lasts in summer of 1992, about 3 days. It took the jury about an hour to come up with a unanimous guilty verdict. Todd Willingham's lawyer, and you can hear him talk both on the Frontline documentary and in the Incendiary documentary. Todd Willingham's lawyer says things like he was a bad guy. He seemed like a sociopath, psychopath. I work in a neighborhood school in the rough neighborhood where we have a lot of violence and we have a lot of chaos and we have a lot of anti-intellectual feeling among many people. Even my students watching Willingham's lawyer were incredulous that somebody like that would be an attorney. Even more incredulous that somebody basing his feelings would be willing to use that and see his client sent to death row, where he spent 12 years and was eventually executed. So you have a case study in the Cameron Todd Willingham case of the flaws in the American justice system and the flaws of people within the system and people in general. The parts that really are eye-opening in the Willingham case are the fact that after Willingham had been put on death row, and remember, he was there going to death. He was there on death row for 12 years. Other evidence came through that at worst cast a reasonable doubt on the guilty conviction. And not only that, in effect show that the story of the arson detectives after the Willingham house burned down, that it could not have been the story that they said happened. It was impossible. So reasonable doubt is automatic. This is after the fact. This is during the appeals process. You have a couple of people come through and take a look at Willingham's case, and they look at what the original arson detectives did, and they found it supremely flawed. There's a guy I want to learn more about, a guy named Gerald Hurst, who was a scientific prodigy and made a lot of explosive things and became the expert on pyrotechnics and explosions. That's what he did for a living. And then he wound up, he had a few patents and he made good money. And then he wound up taking pro bono cases for arson cases. And the unique thing about Hurst, because, you'd think I'm talking in circles where he says, where I'm saying don't obey authority, and then I'm talking about this authority, Gerald Hurst. But what Hurst does that is different is he says, here's what I know, here's what the report says, here's what the lab reports show and didn't show, and here's the research that I've done and others have done. Therefore, it shows, using the scientific method, that the case against Cameron Todd Willingham could not have been, because Willingham's dead, executed in 2004, and the case is over, that the case that they brought up against him cannot be possible. It just can't work. And in particular, the Incendiary documentary gives young people a taste of what you're up against. You have the political machine in Texas. Doesn't want to look bad. Doesn't want to seem to be soft on crime. So what you have is the Republican Texas machine. Rick Perry was the governor at the time, and he was running for re-election. Because they did not want to see soft on crime, they saw to it that any information on the Willingham case got delayed or hidden or somehow muddied, somehow dirtied. And the sick part of all of it is Willingham was long dead. Willingham had been put to death in early 2004, and the case was over. Willingham wasn't coming back. What was trying to be done was acknowledgement of the mistakes and some kind of codification, some kind of permanent record in the way that arson cases and fire cases were taken from there forward, so that it wouldn't happen again. And the machine in Texas said no, because we don't want to look bad, and we were told that Cameron Todd Willingham was a monster. We are going to say this, and we are going to stick with it no matter what. And it really shows a young person today that you should not be naive. Political considerations and feelings seem to trump rational discourse and scientific proof. Hurst, in the documentary Incendiary, says something exceedingly noteworthy. And he says, in the documentary, he says, people seem to think that evidence and scientific proof can be nullified simply by calling it so-called scientific proof. Or an expert or scientist can be made to be not an expert by simply saying latter-day expert, or self-proclaimed expert, or self-proclaimed scientist. And Hurst is incredulous about this. I know I'm using that word incredulous a lot, but you have to be incredulous this day and age, because Hurst correctly, in his rational mind, sees that people, despite facts, logic, and reason, are going to go with emotions and political concerns and kind of just what they want that serves their agenda. And that makes the Willingham case a textbook case for today. Look at all of the things around that are going on where you, plural, you guys, my legions of fans, and me, and everybody else, are made to worship at the things that are fake, to worship the lie. I tweeted out, I've told you, it's okay to be white. Some person out there thought that I should be fired and tried to make it happen. We are told that there are more than two genders. And they don't care, these people who worship the lie, they don't care if you say there are 56 genders or 72 genders or 8 genders. They just want you to bend the knee and say the thing that they want you to say and reject truth. You can't have, in humanity, you can't have more than two genders. There are men and women. That's all there is. It's just biology. Are there more than two genders with cats? Or with turtles? Why does no one bring that up? Is your poodle transitioning these days? Or are there more than two genders for dogs? And it doesn't matter the number. These are the kinds of people who do not respect reason and evidence. They want you, this is a power play. They simply want you to say what they want you to say. It makes them feel good to be more powerful and to push you around. And there are frighteningly large numbers of people like this. Currently, we call them progressives, but they're on all sides of the fence and all sides of the so-called political spectrum. And they just want you to buy into what they're selling. And at times by force. And that really is on display in the Todd Willingham case. And just in case you think that this is a testament to look at those white male Republicans down in Texas. Look at those Bible-beating weirdos, those right-wingers. They're just sick, and they put a guy to death because he liked Megadeth and Iron Maiden and heavy metal, and he didn't behave quite right after the fire. He didn't seem sorry enough. I don't trust those kinds of people. Just in case you think it's that kind of thing. And I'm going to do this next year. I'm going to put the David McCallum case back to back with the Cameron Todd Willingham case. David McCallum was a teenager. He was railroaded into confessing to a murder he didn't commit. And he spent 40 plus years in prison in New York City. Now, there isn't a white Republican in the bowels of the political process in New York City anywhere. I know you're going to bring up Rudy Giuliani, right, for what was that, 8 years of being mayor. Go look at before Giuliani. Look at what you got. Look at the 1980s when McCallum got put in prison in Brooklyn, 1985. Okay? And Bloomberg, please. Republican. Yeah, okay. You're obviously not paying attention. But the point is the same, isn't it? Isn't the common denominator is the same. You have people who are not able to get past their emotions and political agenda. People want their political team to win, and everyone else is bad. Or they feel a certain way. There are people there you can see in the documentary Incendiary, and to some degree in the Frontline documentary, Willingham's lawyer, when they ask him about the case, first of all, he's baffled that anyone would even want to talk about it. Like, to him, that dude is just guilty. He's a psycho. He was a psycho. And he's not anyone to even discuss. He's human filth. And the fact that he's dead is a plus. And you can see the attorney for Willingham talk about him that way. He's a weirdo, a sicko. He was dangerous, disgusting. And the fact that he's dead is good. And he comes up with many things that are not arguments to support his staunch defense of the Willingham killing by the state. And there are other weird agendas at place too. The anti-death penalty people took over the Willingham case as part of their proof that they are right on the anti-death penalty crusade. Now, I don't believe in the death penalty anymore, simply because it's the government. So, and they just mistake-laden, stupid, agenda-driven weirdos who want to have power over you. But the pro-death penalty people actually hurt Willingham's case because it wasn't about the death penalty. It was about the process in putting people to death and the lack of dedication to scientific fact and to making sure that the state gets it right. And you're not going to have, to close, because I'm getting near the end, you're not going to have this kind of society we're in repaired. It's actually maybe worse now. And that's scary to think about, but there's a couple of reasons why. One of them is this just insane allegiance to government. talking to people about, well, we need the government to do this, and the government to do this, and the government is good, but they're stupid, but they make mistakes, but we need it, and who will build the roads? When you bring up the Willingham farce, the government joke that put an innocent man to death, or if you think with the Willingham case, the scientific evidence doesn't prove his innocence, you don't have to prove innocence. First of all, you're already innocent when you go in the system. But reasonable doubt is undoubtedly put out there by Hurst and the other people. Now, there's an even further descent into worship of experts in today's world, in 2019. The Willingham case was 92 through 2004. And then for about 6 or 7 years after that, as people were screaming from the rooftops saying something wrong was done. This was a mistake. And now, young people need to know, if you want to watch human behavior, and you want to watch a train wreck of mistakes dealing with the human condition and emotions and political agendas and the complete, almost utter farce that the judicial system in the United States has become, the Willingham case is a good place to go. And you can't, the hard part with the Willingham case is you can't say, it's just those Republicans, or look at the Democrats would have done different. You know, it doesn't lend itself to that. It does lend itself to the flaws in humanity and the way people are really going to react. And that's the lesson to take from the Willingham case. And if you can understand that as a young person, you will be way more prepared for things coming up in your life than those people who have faith in those amazing people in government offices, or faith in a judge wearing a robe, or a lawyer who's now a senator or a governor, or any of these people. You'll at least know what to expect. And you won't be snookered. You won't be fooled into thinking that this fairy tale that you're taught in your public school education is actually true. You'll be much more prepared and much more capable. And that knowledge really is power. The knowledge that you'll get will serve you well as you grow up and become an adult. All right, take care. Check out the Willingham case. That's your homework. And learn from it. It could be a lifesaver. Talk to you next time.